Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of Beyond the Ordinary Show. And today we are with seer, galactic, and quantum anthropologist, I'll call you today, Elizabeth. And we're going into the epic of the Homo sapien. And I really want y'all to hang on because this is a transmission, awakening, and awareness. But the way that Elizabeth explains everything and how it comes into resolution and expansion within us is extraordinary, the way she carries that. We're going to talk about the Lion's Gate portal that we've been navigating through. We're going to talk about the solstice, the eclipse energies from what occurred a few months ago into what we're heading to in the next month and a half. And there's a lot to cover today. So with that, Elizabeth, I want to welcome you back to Beyond the Ordinary. It feels like I'm just welcoming you home.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's true.
Here we are,
Into
yeah.
the living room of John. Yes, thank you so much. I always like
The-
talking with you because we get a good
uh,
clear vision.
we get great visions. Um, we have a lot of new people joining BTO, and I would appreciate it if you give people just a little overview of what it is that how it is that you bring this wisdom into being and share it with other people to give them tools to navigate these waves that seem to be unending.
Oh yeah, thank you. I think navigating consciousness is my passion. So um it, most of the time I'm just a psychic farmer, but um the the way that I tend to work as an anthropologist is I look at galactic cycles. I study astrophysics as well, but I also like the quantum too and how they all create and affect human culture and evolution. And what I care about so much is that people are able to understand who they are. That means everything to me. And that you are not your body, of course, but that your body's really precious, a wonderful, mind-blowing technology that has an incredible history. And when you understand that history, it really opens up everything, all of what your true skills are, all of what the possibilities are for being human, which in the sort of matrixy 3D realm, you don't get that. That sounds like sci-fi. It sounds like fiction. It sounds like it's not real. But the truth is actually far more interesting and beautiful. And the parables that I like to present about our true history come from ancient text, past life memory, and the past life memories of my different teachers that I've had over the years. And I think that past life memory is very profound because real past life memory it can be very brutal, just like regular life. Uh, but all of that combined gets to give us this really beautiful picture of where we really came from and how we ended up in this situation, but more so where we're heading. And that's the most important piece, is
Hmm.
to create our own future and not let anyone decide what that is for us, but to be the creators of it. And my passion is how to do that with natural law, how to do that in divine order with the divine will, with those tools. So that's what I care about.
I love that. And you definitely impart the information and technology that we're receiving. You translate it in a way that really bridges where we've come from and really allows for the formation of the future to be carried forward in the momentum of the past. So I'd love it more if you would get into why it is important to have that knowledge of the past.
Yeah, well, I've always found something just when we take it from the personal to the universal, when we sit down and really recapitulate our lives and we take that fine-tooth comb through our lifetime, just this one, and we say, what are the things that we might have said were mistakes, perhaps that we learned from? Of course, they're always valuable, the suffering that we've been through, the successes, the relationships that we've ended up orbiting in and out of. And when we do that, we end up seeing a whole lot more about our own patterns and our own concepts about what is it that we want to build on? What is it that we've mastered and now we want to move forward with that information to inform our future and then feel more empowered instead of weighed down by our past, right? So we use our past as an advisor. But then you take it to a whole other level where you're then looking at perhaps your whole family's lineage as well. What is the past that you're going to learn from that? You take it to an even greater level. What about the culture you come from? And then the human history of Earth. What happened to the Homo sapien? Where the heck did they come from? What was that all about? How did they just suddenly appear out of nowhere 800,000 years ago? And then you go even farther because that 800,000 years was an experiment in consciousness that's now coming to an end. And many, many cycles are ending right this minute. We're in the middle of it. All the doorways opening for us to move forward into a deeper evolution. So we need to recapitulate these last 800,000 years, go through that with a fine tooth comb so that we can take all of the elements that we want to keep, throw some stuff out, demand better for ourselves ultimately. No more slavery, for example, no
Mhm.
more consciousness slavery, no more emotional slavery. We're watching a lot of things bubble up to the surface. For example, this incredible what we would really truly call a pandemic of narcissism bubbling
Mm.
up to the surface, right? Where did that come from? Hey, guess what? There's origins in our 800,000 year history as Homo sapiens for all of these things, for all of the shame. And we're missing a bunch of cool stuff. We're missing it from our galactic history, which is an even greater one. And if you
Mhm.
recapitulate the galactic history, it makes sense that now we're going through some of the same patterns that we all did as people from different planets, as our star families went through too. So the incredible power of recapitulating the past sets you up for a more important future of peace, right? So ultimately, my goal is to help people to have all of that and understand what they're missing so that they can create it from here. We already know the matrix is falling apart. It's been a long, long free fall, all very interesting and terrifying and entertaining. But we have work to do. We're the
Yeah.
transition team, and we need to go through our experiment very carefully and make sure that we know what we're doing and that we command peace from here on out. And that's going to take some very specific efforts. It's not completely unmanageable though. And people they're afraid that it's like way too late or that it's unmanageable. No, not at all. We've just started. It's perfect timing, divine timing as always.
Well, you say divine timing, and the messages that I keep receiving consistently, it's the time is now.
Mhm.
And that's never been more true than right now. I mean, truly. Um, and it's consistent and it feels like we've come to this place that we can hold such a stable foundation to really capitulate into that new creation, as you're saying, to use your words. Um, you talked about galactic history, and I want to dive into that just a little bit. I'm so curious, how did you receive your galactic, that information or knowledge about the galactic history?
Well, I'm a big nerd and I like to read. So, I have been spending about 30 years. Well, it's been longer than that, but mainly about 30 years going through ancient text and also doing a lot of different kinds of remote viewing. And the remote viewing I do is very unusual. I have the skill to be able to put myself anywhere in space, but I can also put myself anywhere in time.
Hmm.
And that's really fun. I highly recommend going and like hanging out with Jesus and stuff like that. But the look at our actual history, to put myself in a space of time where I actually get to be an observer, and then take the stories that I perceive that are also rooted in past life memory and ancient text. We are able to then piece together something far more interesting. And you're able to, if you're a good remote viewer who can work outside of the linear time, you can also put yourself in a position to observe other human histories, such as Sirius or the Pleiades or the Arcturians, and then what they accomplished. What were their failures? What were their successes? Because none of them had perfect histories whatsoever. And it's been very profound to just recognize that being human is a universal trait.
Mm,
Just being human. When we say, look in the mirror and say, I'm human, or we say, I'm just human, I want to take that just and throw it out and say,
mm,
I am human, and I come from some of the most magnificent stories beyond this planet. Furthermore, the immensity of wisdom and power that the emissaries of our ancestry actually had, what it really took to turn our galaxy into a combined effort in order to face off with adversaries that are still difficult. But the beautiful part is being able to perceive all of these in parable forms so that no one has to worry about sitting around saying, well, is this really true or not? It doesn't really matter exactly. It's got all the particular tidbits you need to then extrapolate, well, how did we end up in the situation we're at with the similar patterns? Well, it makes sense. It feels correct in
mm,
that, oh, wow. So the Syrians, for example, were dealing with the dynamics between the masculine and feminine, and it was brutal. Or racism with the Pleiadians, also brutal. The Arcturians actually never had any war on their planet, still never did. But, what were the downfalls of that?
right.
And some really beautiful ideas like that to bring to the table to make our present situation make a lot more sense so that we can move forward into the next iteration of being human, which is Homo luminous, a different species altogether.
It's wonderful. It's again, so much is transitioning and we're accumulating so much of the memories, the history. It's like we're really embodying through our experiences here as earthly human beings. Um, it's like we're all carrying a part of that and there's a restitution, a resolution, and an expansion that's coming from all that history. And it's leading us into places where we're being facilitated um, by the memory of our history. But there's also celestial events that are really becoming just quite so palatable right now. They're just so you can feel the heightening, the luminosity of the energy that's really transpiring. So I'd love it if we can talk a little bit also about um, what you have witnessed from the solstice leading up to now, where perhaps where that's weaving us into the Lions Gate. Like I mentioned earlier, the eclipse is also, and y'all, we're going to get into Q&A with Elizabeth in a little bit, so don't despair. We're going to get into that. But I know Elizabeth has so much to share right now that I want to make sure that we cover these different things.
So solstice this year, the only other solstice I've ever experienced that was a little bit like it was 2009.
Hmm.
In 2009, I couldn't see past it, and I was like, what does that mean? Because as a seer, as an oracle, I get glimpses of stuff. It's far, far away. It doesn't necessarily mean it won't change, of course, because seeing the future is really rather pointless. You'd rather create it. Um, but it was like a wall of energy. And what happened in 2009 is that collective consciousness came online, global collective consciousness, mostly because of the internet. Um, and that was really cool because it was kind of instantaneous. And then a lot of stuff changed after that, right? And then this one was the same. I couldn't see past it. So I knew it was big. And I thought, ooh, what's the next level of consciousness? Well, it's galactic consciousness.
Mhm.
Realizing that we're all part of a network of beings, of human beings in this galaxy, and that DNA, thought travels faster than light. DNA is transmitting and receiving all the time, and it moves quicker than you can possibly imagine. And our receiving and also offering of what we've learned has been pretty cut off until now. And I think it's many factors played into that. We're in a time of disclosure. But what I did not expect is that this solstice actually was more than just galactic consciousness. It's what I would call literally the apocalypse. And
Mhm.
so everyone's like, what? What do you mean the apocalypse? I thought that was going to be, one horrible day was suddenly the apocalypse. No, the apocalypse means revealing. And what's happened is the refinement of the energies available because of the planet, dear Gaia, our amazing Earth, because of her and her excursion, right? Her electromagnetic field is disappearing. And that's because we're at a 12,000 year electromagnetic current sheet excursion. It happens every 12,000 years on the dot. So that's happening. That's why we're having red auroras in like Florida. Like, because
Mhm.
the field's disappearing, and so any activity from the sun is actually very dramatic. This is why everyone feels the drama of the energies more so than ever. But June solstice of 2024 was the great revealing, and it's subtle. And basically, what it is that no longer can you live outside of authenticity. It's very simple. You
Mhm.
cannot live outside of authenticity. You must be you now, your full true self. No more masks, no more lies, no more relationships that are not correct. You're here to be in your divine rights, the divine right relationships, the divine right work for the divine right pay, your divine rights in natural law. What are the divine rights? What are the divine laws? These are the things that we now have to live in now in order to survive what's coming, which is much more change at a very swift pace from here. And
Mhm.
so this beautiful, very subtle revealing of truth, it's gonna cause us to have a lot of different things happen. And for myself, it's been both physical, it has had to do with relationships, wellness, all these things. I've had to get real with myself and really look in the mirror and say, what's it going to take for me to truly be my I am presence, my essence, my soul's true frequency, and nothing else? And if you are that, then your life shifts, it changes, and it begins to rearrange, and more is revealed, more truth. And some of it is really hard to face. But of course, if you have the tools, if you've got the guidance, if you've got a community like this, you're going to be able to face it and point the finger at yourself and own it. Now,
Mhm.
from there, then we had the outplay of July, which was very tumultuous, and it led us into the 888 gateway of August and the Lion's Gate, and we've had these eclipses as well, playing their roles energy wise, revealing more. But 888 was all about karma, and most people get karma a little bit wrong. Karma is not something that follows you over lifetimes. When you're finished with a life, you're finished with that karma because it's really a matter of the consequences and the physics of consciousness. But when you are in a life, all of the different consequences and the physics of your consciousness affect your reality. So 888 was showing us, how exactly are my thoughts, my actions, my words? Are they in alignment with my authenticity? Are they not? Are they different? Am I thinking stuff, but then not saying it? And if I'm not saying it, why? And to whom am I not saying it? Or the vice versa, am I saying stuff and not meaning it, not truly thinking it from my deep soul level thinking or my heart? What's happening with all of that? More so, all of the choices we've made up till now, all the traumas, all the programming is coming out to be laid out very clearly for us because of that gateway. And that gateway is showing all of us, hey, guess what? All of those choices, they have repercussions, most of them oftentimes showing up in the physical. And those repercussions now need to, have to come to terms with them. Did the equation play out? Is it even? Have you been generous enough? Have you been working on moving out of the realm of what's in it for me and into a state of sovereign service where you're serving as a soul, first your body, and then all of the souls around you? What is really going on with that? So many of us are facing big changes, such as relationship, career, hopes and dreams, fears and desires, all being laid out in great, great order. And as this all leads us into this amazing new super blue moon that's coming up on the 19th, it's a time for ritual. And don't forget that ritual is technology. Your
Mm.
body is technology. And when you use your body to its fullest, which is 12 dimensions and not just the 3D, and you reorient yourself to the most important dimension, which is the first dimension, the I am presence, then you can actually utilize the power of your divine right, the word, the action, and create reality. Everything is so much more um, palpable in that there's not a bunch of junk in the way, literally, from you doing ritual, saying what you intend, and actually owning your divine right to do so, doing action. Perhaps you're dissolving something, you're burning some programs, you write them all down and you burn them in a fire. You're growing something, you bury it in the earth and you ask Gaia to help you to grow something special that you care about, a relationship, a career, an idea, a hope, a dream, right? But then as you do that, there's no more stuff for it to bounce off of. It's
Mm.
so totally thin, so perfectly open now, so beautiful that it can actually reach out into the galactic consciousness. And all eyes are on us at the moment because we're going through one of the biggest transformations. And it was all designed that way, but we're here now to prepare the way. I like to call us the prismatic humans because we're not quite homo luminous yet, but
Mm.
we are realizing that we are the prisms, the different varieties of light and thought and possibility beyond all of what we have known is now available more and more. And that's the gateway we're in. And it's not going to stop. The
Mm.
apocalypse is happening. It's wonderful. It's to be celebrated. Congratulations. You made it this far. Now's the time, like John is saying, for
Mm.
ultimate creation.
How is it that you help people get to that place of integrity? Because we can have the best of intentions and we're navigating, and God knows I certainly go through periods of indecision. I'm not quite sure what it is that's really in integrity. I don't want to react from ego and let something go or jump on something because my ego wants to drive it, but I'm not quite landing in that heart space, in that connected space where the fluidity of that decision really guides the way.
Yeah, exactly. And we might call that being in the divine will, right? And
Mhm.
many of us have had experiences where we were sort of automatically drawn into something and it took very little effort, right? So the way I help people is, well, if it's taking effort, then that's because there's more discernment that needs to be looked at, right? And discernment is the purest form of how we're able to perceive the divine will, and it's perceived through the body. So there's a couple of different ways that I can give people right now to consider for discerning all of those decisions and what's right action, right thought, right deed, all of these wonderful things. First and foremost, your body is the incredible powerhouse of discernment. It is a perfect oracle for you. And so you do use your mind. That's true. You got to sit down and use your brain mind because brain mind's really good at logic. Brain mind is good at pros and cons. It's good at transactions. It's terrible at memory. We make stuff up with our brains and forget things and all sorts of stuff. But the brain mind's really great at those pros and cons. So you got to get that out of the way. And then I like to bow to my brain mind and say, thank you. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Now I need you to step aside, because brain mind is also where most of our ego is based because of the different layers of the mind, and we're highly programmed. So the programming, the cultural conditioning we go through, I like to say there's four structures to ego. There's judgment, there's attachments, there's there's resistance, and there's expectations. And
Mhm.
they're all basically, they exist that way because of trauma and programming. So judgment is actually discernment, but it's being run through programming and trauma. Attachment is actually love, but it's being run through programming and trauma. Same
Mhm.
with resistance and expectations. And that's why you need to bow to the brain mind, because then all of that gets set aside. Then you use your second brain, which is your heart, and you talk to the heart. And I mean, very literally talk to the heart. The heart is the seat of the body memory. Your brain's terrible at memory. Your heart is the seat of perfect body memory. So your
Mhm.
heart remembers everything and doesn't discriminate. It doesn't make mountains out of molehills or anything like that. So you can bow to the heart and ask the heart, well, from my body memory experience, what's the right decision? Should I do this thing? And the heart's going to contract when it says no, and it's going to open up when it says yes. But the heart also will sometimes say no if it doesn't have experience with something. And so keep that in mind.
Mhm.
Now, then we bow to the heart, thank you very much, and we go down to the gut. And that's your third brain. You have three brains. And the third brain is one of the most important. It's the seat of survival and thriving. So your gut mind, which is actually the bacterium of your embodiment, which makes up the incredible community that you're truly married to as a spirit, and that biome, it's going to help you to survive and thrive. That's why we have those adages in our language, like, I had a bad gut feeling about that party, so I left, right?
Mhm.
Because the gut's going to tell you, and it's going to do the same. It'll cinch up when it's saying no, and it'll get really excited and open when it says yes. And a lot of people misinterpret those butterflies as anxiety when it's actually the gut saying, yes, this is really awesome. And so it's really important to take all three of those. That helps with better discernment. And it's very simple. And to practice it, because some people don't feel it right away, but
Mhm.
to practice it, ask questions that you know the answer to. Like, do I love my children? Or do I like to eat rocks? Or, you'll feel your body react because the body is telling you. If you say, dear heart, do I like to eat rocks? And your heart says no, you're going to feel that very gentle cinching up of the heart saying, well, no, that's obviously not good. So the body's perfect for all of that. Discernment, that's part of the what we might call micro navigating of your daily life, and also making big decisions too. Then of course we have the importance of navigating beyond all of that. What is going on with that divine will? Where does that come from? Does your brain and your heart and your gut, do they work in divine will? Well, they're actually being animated. They're being powered by something, right? So here's a very good metaphor to play with. Think of it as that your life is like a private movie showing, right? It's all you. And here's the projector, and here's the film through which the projector is running light, and here's your body watching the film play out on the screen of reality, and it all seems very real. Now, we've been lied to. We've been told that we are the body watching the movie. That is not true. You are the light bulb that runs the projector. So if you reorient yourself to the first dimension instead of the third, and you say, I am the light which animates all things, I am of the divine will, I am a portion of, I'm a key on a piano, I am a quality of light that is conscious. you're not even the film. The film is actually your DNA, and it's got some of your personal history, but mostly it's your genetic history getting played out, which is why we have patterns from our families, whether we knew it or not. And when you really reorient yourself that way, everything shifts, because then you can value the film, but eventually, what would happen if you threw it out? What if you decided to clean up your epigenetic memory? That's what Homo luminous is. When
Mm,
we decide to shift our epigenetic memory to perfect nothing, then what gets played on the screen through your body? It's your soul's light. And your soul has memory from the beginning of the universe. Your soul has access to the void, which is source, the source of all things, the source of all qualities of light, knowledge, and understanding of what is and what has been and what will be. And it's infinite, it's omnipotent. And so then what do you see in your life then? It's the one thing people have been seeking. It's the 12th dimension. It's being able to perceive the light of God in all things without any kind of fear or desire. And that's where we're heading. So I think that it's always so important to stand back and say, am I really being the light bulb right now? Or am I trying to be the film? Or am I trying to be the body? Or what am I trying to be right now in this choice? And when you back up and you say, I am this endless being that is so ancient, and I am not this body, but I serve this body. That's what
mm,
sovereign service is. We're throwing selfless service out. Sovereign service. You are the soul that serves this immense, incredible, beautiful, amazing body that is alive. And it loves you so much that it only wants to be with you. And when you really own that and you recognize it, now everything can shift and change. And then you feel the divine will, then it's less work. The natural laws, the divine laws elevate you. They don't box you in like human laws. The divine laws make it easier for you so that you
mm,
don't have to put so much effort in worrying and believing that you are this body. No longer does that have to be your life. So it's a lifestyle change. It's a mindset change for sure, but it's also a big energetic shift away from the things we've often been taught about how, oh, we need to go to the fifth dimension. Actually, it's the first dimension. And then the
mm.
rest of the dimensions are a lot easier. So that's
It's
what I
it's
see, and that's how I like to help people.
I love the way that you explain that and bring it in, and it's very much in alignment with what I pick up as well, and my interpretations, except you articulate it so beautifully. Um, we're going to get into Q&A in a little bit, y'all. If y'all really want to ask a question, raise your hand, type it into the chat box, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Plus, the special offer is just extraordinary. We're going to get into that in a little bit as well. Um, I understand that we're attuning, that we're refining, that we're going through, again, reconciliation of the past and into different cycles, into illumination. Once like that karmic wheel we recognize the karmic wheel as being done. There's still a lot of projection that I hear from different communities. Well, if only this would be fixed or that would be doing, and if this other thing would happen, then we could finally be in this place of liberation. How is it that you're helping guide your community really into that place again of that sovereignty rather than looking for the outside circumstance that we are then saying is affecting us and preventing us from fulfilling that experience into the next stage?
Yeah, it's a good question. What we're hearing from people is an attempt without the context, the appropriate context and tools. It's an attempt at the recapitulation of what's happened to us over the past 800,000 years. And so when I hear people say that, I have so much compassion, because that means that they're attempting to get a hold of what's really going on.
Mhm.
And they know, they can see that the matrixy stuff is not going to work, but they're not really sure what to do from there, right? So we need to put our scientists' hats back on, and we need to say, all right, well, why exactly did it fail? and and with compassion and objectivity, why exactly are these political systems not working? Why exactly are these things in the economy, etc., not working anymore? And then we need to ask ourselves this incredibly important question: did it not work because it wasn't in natural law? And because there's very little opportunity for us to actually find much that's in natural law that doesn't work. And the way you can really see that for yourself is look at the incredible variety of life that's been able to thrive on Gaia no matter what's happened, no matter how many pole shifts we've been through, and including you, by the way, because we've been through 66 12,000-year cycles. And that is really key. Furthermore, the other half of that effort as a good scientist would be to say, all right, so if we know what didn't work and we know, or we have some inklings of what might work, what can we gather from natural law and what would we do to build from there? So here's a quick example: economics. And I love economics. And I understand human nature. And when we look at economics as we've been playing with it these days, we know it's not working very well. And when you work in natural law, the economy shifts and changes a lot. What it
Mm,
could be is so beautiful. It We always talk about currency being backed by something, right? And the fiat money not being backed by anything. That's that's obviously outside of natural law. We need to have currency that has value. But in the research I've done around how to build new things from natural law, I found that our economies could be backed by time itself. Time is actually a scarce resource, and all of us have a certain amount of time every day. That means you are inherently wealthy.
mm,
And that inherent wealth, that's the kind of natural law that we're going to see play out. Or, for example, politics, how to make decisions, right? And what we do know is that if we throw out what systems we've had so far, we uncouple economy from politics so that politics is no longer a paid position, but rather a position of merit. And
mhm,
there's this beautiful idea in natural law called meritocracy, where someone is actually asked to serve because they're such a valuable and important part of the community. Maybe it's that basketball coach that everybody loves because he serves everybody so wonderful. Everybody knows that they can go to him with their problems. And the whole community says, if we have somebody that's going to speak for us, it's got to be that guy because he's just, his heart's open and he's the best.
mm,
Right. And then he gets asked to be the voice of the local people. That's meritocracy. That's what we're going to actually see. And how does it play out? My friends, you don't really have to work too hard at it. That's what's so cool about natural law, is
mm,
because if you work in natural law, it actually naturally happens. It naturally makes sense that we would ask the person with the most open heart, with the most presence, with the most generosity to be the voice of our local community or our neighborhood, right? It makes sense. It's so beautiful. Same with having time be the thing that backs our currency, because we already get paid for our time, right? But with what? Now we're being paid with nothing, basically. So, how amazing to know that you are naturally wealthy, that your natural ability to be a good person gives you incredible authority. That's the kind of thing that is going to happen from here. So, it's okay for people to say, well, if this one thing could change, or we're so far away because all these things have to change, is
mm,
terrible. Look at the system. Don't worry about it. What you're mainly looking at is actually the physical representation of these broken systems, like big office buildings with nobody in it. Well, that could be turned into a lot of things. That's what's so beautiful about natural law, is we get to be
Mhm.
creative. So that's my answer. That's how I think it'll pan out. And it's not going to take as much effort as people think.
Well, and all that is a byproduct of the piece of integrity that came in from the very beginning. From that integrity, everything unfolds. It just is. And you can't
Yes.
help but to navigate in that integrity because it becomes so known and so felt. There's such an awareness of it that you can tell when there is a wobble in that, that again, we're out of balance. We're not in the natural law, and it calls us back. And from that place of thriving, why would we choose anything else? It's like carrying out the illusion for the sake of trying to not face a fear doesn't provide the value that we once gave it. Uh, because we're what's on the other side in balance and again natural order. Um, Amazing, Elizabeth. I'd love to jump to a little bit of Q&A before we get into the
Sure.
special offer. And again, y'all, the special offer is like wow, it's so full
Thank
on.
you.
I can't wait to get to it. But I felt like I wanted to, yeah, like y'all have some important questions to bring in. So Jamel, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Welcome to the call. If not, please correct me.
Oh, you did great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Hi, Jamel.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
You too.
Thank you. Several months ago, I was encountered this phenomenon was just kind of like thrown at me through a friend. So I want to know your thoughts on angel embodiment because I'm trying to wrap my head around it. And from what I'm learning about all of these multidimensional beings, they're beings of light, and maybe they can form into humans, but do they embody humans? And do they come back as humans down to Earth in order to influence and be a player in the game again?
Great question. My answer is unique. It's not going to fit what much of our community has been taught about this. So here's what I think. The angels and the demonic, being the same species, are simply embodied frequencies. They are living frequencies. When you're moving through dimensions, it's one of my favorite things to help people do is be able to work with the dimensions. You end up in the seventh dimension and you're dealing with this incredible array of frequencies that are living beings, which means that they don't actually die, right? So how can like the frequency of anger die or the frequency of joy die? It can't. So we have these angels that we oftentimes interact with, and they'll show themselves in lots of different forms, but basically they are frequencies. Your guardian angels, they're frequencies that relate to you, right? Because your guardians are going to be connected to you because of your frequencies and your personality. Now, what happens is I'm deeply against channeling. There should only ever be one soul per body, ever. You should never ever let a being move through you, speak through you, take over your body in any way, shape, or form. That's called possession. And there's lots of beings who want to be human, but you have to be invited and you have to be really generous. And you have had to have quite a lot of skin in the game before all of this to be invited to be human, including oftentimes incarnating and being animals for a long time on Earth to just get used to being around humans and what their pros and cons and strengths and weaknesses are. But when you have a being wanting to be in your body, then you better kick them out of your field because they're going against natural law. Now, the other thing is that in my understanding and knowledge of the angelic and demonic, no, they don't incarnate because they don't die. They're a living frequency that you can interact with in that dimension, right? And so if you went and sat in the seventh dimension, which you can because you're human and you have access to all 12 dimensions of consciousness, and you could hang out with any angel you wanted to and pick their brain. But angels don't tend to ask you questions because angels aren't interested in learning about humans. They have one job on Earth, which is to try to get the demons to leave us alone because they believe in our sovereignty, which is why they can't do anything unless you ask them. So you have to ask them. I sent my angels off a long time ago. When I was 30 years old, I sat with them for a year and I asked them about their history and what they were doing here. And then I said, please, by all means, go do what you got to do. And they left. And sometimes they'll come in and say hello, which is lovely. But they're living frequencies. I also used to think of myself as a badass demon killer, but then I realized that that's pretty pointless because they don't die. And rather, more importantly, how did they get attracted to you? If you can deal with the root cause or the crumbs which the ants want to eat, then they're not going to bother you anymore. So I help people deal with demonic oppression as well, but it's because it's an inside job. It's 99% an inside job. So that's my opinion. I think that angels are very special and important, and it's part of our long journey in our awakening process. But there's a lot of other beings besides the angelic that are very interesting and important to interact with. And we can get a certain amount of value in those relationships. But remember what I've said. They don't want to, real angels don't want to take over your body. They don't necessarily want to speak through you, though they'll give messages and they're wonderful at that. And they won't ask you questions because they want to let you have your sovereignty. You can ask them questions. So that's how you can discern what you're dealing with. And that's my opinion and from a lot of experience as well.
And a lot of discernment. A lot of discernment. Yeah.
I hope it helps.
All right,
Thank
Jamal.
you very much. That was very clear. Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
great
welcome.
question. Awesome. All right, let's continue. Dawn, welcome to the call.
Hello, sweet Elizabeth
Hi,
and John.
Don.
John, so nice to see you again. It's like coming home. It's so
Oh,
beautiful.
thank you. You too.
My question to you today is, and thanks so much for being here again. I'm going to Egypt with this beautiful group that John's put together.
Good.
During that eclipse time, it's pretty magical. Speaking of the heart, it's like, don't know why I had to be there, but got to be there. Big yes, right? And I'm wondering, in preparation for this, or maybe you can tune into what you see about the magic of being there at that time, the reasons and the timing and the importance of us being in this mystical land at that time as a group, and particularly for myself. This is an investment in, I think, this service to humanity piece, and I just wonder what you see.
Yeah. First, Egypt is so interesting, of course, and part of one of the most important parts of our super beautiful history as humans. But what's going to happen that's different than other times, right? Because we can go to Egypt, sure, but going to Egypt now, that's different. Why? Well, because Egypt wasn't really Egypt forever and ever. Egypt was actually something much older. Egypt is built on top of something even older.
Yeah.
Egypt is Kemet, and Egypt comes from the Orion peoples, and they were incredible, masterful beings who built the Sphinx. And the Sphinx existed way before Egypt was built. The Sphinx is one of the remnants of what was built before that. So what I think is going to happen is that on this trip, because of the wonderful apocalypse, that we're going to get more authentic truth revealed through dreams, through psychic perception, and that more authentic truth will be arising up from Gaia. It's kind of happening everywhere. I live in southern Ecuador, and that also is happening here, where there's really old, much older histories that Gaia's like, oh yeah, you thought that was an old book. Well, let's go back farther, and I'm going to check it. I'm going to show you the even older books on which those old books were written, right? And so that's what's happening energetically, is that the layers, the deeper layers of what was Kemet, and that's all going to get revealed. This is even way before the concept of Isis and so much more. So, and some of it we don't really know about very well because we can't do any archaeology, but guess what? You don't need to if you use your psychic skills. You can see for yourself. So I think it'll be very fun, and it'll open up the galactic part, right? We're in here for galactic consciousness. Many different beings helped to establish what we're actually dealing with now from all over our amazing galaxy, including Orion. So I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
It's a lot that's coming through, Dawn, and we're going to cover more. But again, those timelines, what's being revealed. Also, as we're showing up in a group consciousness, as we amplify the fields, as we're within our own integrity, and we stabilize those fields, Elizabeth, don't you find that that collective is able to tap into technologies that just weren't ready to be revealed yet because we wouldn't have known what to properly do with it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's that, and also what we would call the true human technology, which are the 144,000 siddhas, the superpowers of humanity. Many of them are basically sort of stored away in parts of Gaia, like Egypt, and that's because our planet's a library. And it's made of two different planets. Lyra, which is the original library of consciousness created by the beings who created DNA in the human body, but also Gaia, the water, the water being that is the soul of our planet that came from a different planet called the primordial waters. And those two things were merged here in this particular solar system. Someone asked about how intelligent stars are. Stars are source light. Stars are beings of source, just like you, and have the same level of intelligence as a soul. And stars can incarnate, unlike angels. But that's what's going to happen. The technologies are really cool, but it's not all technologies that are external. It's the internal technologies, the superpowers about being human.
Yeah. Great question, Dawn, leading up to our call tomorrow.
Yeah, any sort of preparation you would suggest, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. In ritual, this next full moon, sit down and write out all of your fears that you've ever had, and write out all of your desires, and burn them both, and be finished.
In ritual.
Order, absolutely.
Oh,
yeah. In order to perceive at a higher level, you cannot run it through what you know. A good oracle can see without knowing. And what we know is most often what we are afraid of and what we desire. Be finished with both. And then you'll see more, and you'll be able to do it with more passion and more awareness.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dawn. So exciting. So exciting. And Elizabeth, I just so resonate with the not knowing part also, because as people are asking as we're leading up to this particular trip, which will be there through an eclipse portal, it's like, I don't know. I don't know what's coming in. I can feel a wave. I can feel an intimacy with the land, with the energy that's unfolding. But to tell you that I know what we're in for, it's be prepared for the unknown. Be prepared for the unknown. Wonderful. So, Dawn, great questions. Thank you so much. I want to get into the special offer because it's a big topic, and there's going to be so much that's covered in conversation just by going through a special offer. And we'll get into Q&A after that. But y'all, the link for the special offer, it's in the chat box. Chris typed it in there. You'll see it highlighted in blue. Click on that link. And if you don't find it, you can always go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Elizabeth33, and it'll take you to the same page. And Elizabeth, if you would, guide us through this library,
I'm really excited about this one.
Of what you put together for us, because this is epic.
Thank you. So first, everybody, if you want to buy either package, because we have two, there's an 8-week series, a live series, and a lot of my beautiful community has been waiting for me to teach this for a long time. And I thought, can I really do it in 8 parts? And I sat actually on the Lionsgate gateway, and I asked Source God, show me how I can do this in 8 parts, and I was able to recognize that it was possible. And it's going to be so much fun, but I'm actually going to talk about the last 800,000 years and some of what it took to actually get us here on the planet. Because one of the most fascinating topics in our galactic earthly history is, how do you make a planet ready for a human species? It's actually very profound. And at first, it's not something that, and it's not done in a way that you're used to, but it'll make so much sense once I describe it to you. So we're going to really see, how exactly did Gaia get created and set up? And the way that I do this is through storytelling. And I tell it through a parable, but it's mystical. And mysticism, there's many dimensions of energy that work through it. So I want you to come live and join me, and so that we can actually do this together for a 8-week stint. And then the second item for the first package is that in order to make all of that make sense, I wanted to make sure you get access to the whole galactic history series that I did, which is 12 parts. And we actually had done it over 12 months, and we just finished it up. But it was incredibly profound. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever got a chance to do, where I got to share with you, where did all of these humans come from in the first place? Who are the Lyrans exactly? Who are the Arcturians, Syrians, Pleiadians, and all of the emissaries and the councils, and what is going on? And all of that is so stunning. It's absolutely stunning. It was so much joy to do that. And so you get all 12 classes out of that. And it's deeply revealing.
Mm.
And then, and I actually had a lot of beautiful feedback about that class, because it helped people to actually connect deeper to their own humanity, and not, here's something, not put all of our galactic families on a pedestal,
Nice.
especially the Lyran. So the item 3, which I think is so important, is the divine rights retreat. Because I've just mentioned, the divine rights. For example, like the divine right to use your word to create reality. All of these rights are very key. And these retreats are very beautiful, deep, deep retreats that are 6 hours of very expansive revelation of the real playing field beyond the matrix. If you ever wanted to get out of the matrix, right? And then you're standing there and you're like, well, where am I now? It's the divine law, it's divine rights. And then we have the next retreat as well. I wanted to make sure you got the other one as well, the divine laws. So it's 2 6-hour long
Wow.
retreats that are instant access. And some people are used to dealing with mystical teachers, but many of my newer clients and friends, they fall asleep when they listen to this stuff, and it's because you need to let it happen kind of in the background at first, and then your body gets acclimated to all of that dimensional information, and then start really listening to it and let those notes flow if you want to. But this is really powerful healing for your body, opening up your DNA. So that's the first package. And then just to add for package B, I wanted to do a live event on September 13th, a deep energy foundational healing. Now, this one's interesting, because I know many of you have been doing a lot of healing work with a lot of different fabulous people, especially in the John's community. I don't do the kind of healing like other people do. I'm a quantum healer, but I know how to work in many dimensions at once with all of my light bodies. And what I'm able to do this time is I'm going to set you up for success. Remember how I told you that there is a way for us to have a new economy of natural law and a new way of working in politics, as what I called meritocracy. I am going to help you heal by teaching you how to do that for your own community. And so I will show you how to do that. And it will be both a interdimensional healing that will help your body and help you to heal all the trauma of what's been happening with our economies and our cultures for a very long time. I'm going to help you heal that. But I'm also going to give you the blueprint of how to make it happen in your own community And you're going to be able to walk up to your neighbor who thinks that you're woo-woo and say, hey, have this idea, and they're going to love it because it's natural law. And they're not going to think that you're so woo-woo after that, because it's such a profound natural part of being human is to work with these pieces. So I really wanted to make sure that we got together and did that in a live healing. And I'm going to really take my time to set you up for success so that the blueprints, the templates for the new earth get established in all of us in our consciousness.
Yeah, this is so spot on where you're guiding and the way that you do it and the way that you explain it and synthesize it. It's just it becomes so much more elegant to embody. Um, and it does something with the nervous system also when you can feel the integrity of what's being shared. It's like you know and you hear truth, and there's not like this kind of wobble in the field. And again, the facilitation that provides, it's just enormous. So this is fantastic, Elizabeth. Y'all, the link for the special offer is in the chat box. There's a 2 payment option on both package A and package B. April reached out to me a few days ago. She goes, you really need to highlight this package because what Elizabeth's put on here is like, this is like one of the best packages of the season and that we've probably had on the show in a long time, if ever. And that was April sharing from her perspective.
Thank you, April.
Of us being, she was like, you need to check this out. And she never does that, or it's rare that she does that. Typically when she's asking me to check it out, it's because something's missing. Not this time. It's like, wow, you should really like highlight this and let's do something special for this. So y'all are in for something special as you participate. So again, the link's in the chat box. You should ask more. Ask more about what, Lynn? Good question. So we'll see, Lynn, if you want to clarify, what we can definitely try to answer as best that we can. But again, wonderful, Elizabeth. Thank you for putting this and excited about what's being
pleasure.
for all of us. Yeah. And let's get into some more Q&A. There's some more people that came on. And we'll open up these gates. And Aparajita, let's go to you first. Welcome to the call.
Thank you so much. I have always looked forward to this session with you, Elizabeth. I have been on so many webinars. I'm so much into so much. What can I say? Anyway, I will keep my questions short. Like, I'm often confused between, like, as you said, like, what I understood is to be natural, just to be what I believe is to be in my heart. And that's something I had been doing all along since I didn't even have my sense as a kid. Like, I always felt different. But then what happened was always conflicting. It always brought me to so much of pain and so much of, which I believe again is leading me to something, the adventure I believe my life is about. But it has brought me so much fear along with it. That right now I'm trying to understand this conflict, that following the heart and to be myself and understanding my purpose, and again dealing with all the, what should I call, the nonsense that we get carried everywhere. Yes. So I'm in such a big, of course, all that's going on around us. I'm from India, the neighboring countries that is going on, and also in my personal life. So how to deal with it means, and oftentimes, like, I oftentimes feel like, is it okay to follow the heart and be within my, like, to be following the path? What is the path there? Means how to go about it, how to deal with it.
So the heart is part of it, right? And to learn how to speak to your gut mind would be a very good next step for you, because you're coming up against a block. And this is where the conflict is. When you're working in divine will, there won't be any conflict, right? It doesn't mean that conflict's not going to happen around you, or that you're not going to be dealing with stuff that's going on. But it's rather that you'll feel more in your power, right? You'll feel more clear about who you truly are, right? And it's very important to understand, what is it that's distorting the field? What is it that's causing the conflict exactly? Well, it's two things. And you've done a lot of healing on yourself. So very wise of you to keep doing that personal healing on your personal history. But most people, they'll end up kind of at a block, and they get really confused because they've done as much as they can on their personal, and they're not sure what they're able to do from there. And what you've hit now is so vital. Remember how I said that we are the light bulb and the projector, we're not the film. Well, what's the film really made of? It's the epigenetic memory. It is the personal, but that's not most of it. It's your genetic lineage now. This is why you incarnated as an East Indian. This is why most of us chose the lineages that we have come from. It's because now it's time for you to clean up your genetic bondage. And the genetic bondage is what is getting projected through, right? So that you're the light bulb, but what gets projected through is the genetic lineage, it's the genetic bondage. And that's why there seems to be still chaos, even although you've been working on yourself so hard, right? And it's not just feeling through the heart, it's also the gut leading you to thrive. But genetic lineage cleanup is key. It's absolutely key. It's actually the bulk of trauma work. And so how do you do that? Right? Well, ritual is part of it, but really quickly, a formula. Really do some research. Sit down and ask yourself, what do I really know about, and how exactly did my ancestors live? And get down to brass tacks and look at all the traumas, list them out, list out all the traumas. You know, I'm a Scotch Irish, I'm Basque, and I have some Viking, like some of the other folks too. I'm Dutch, right? So a lot of seafaring, and the fear of deep water is real. But then there's all these other things like siege warfare. Well, what happened in siege warfare? Famine, all these different things that are marked in my genetics in order to create really specific reactions to reality. And so those specific reactions to reality can be cleaned up. And then you're not actually letting your light project through the film and create the film that you felt like you had no control over. That's what the conflict is that you feel like you don't have any control over all the messiness because the movie's getting projected out. Once you get your long list of stuff that's happened to people, you start to see patterns. That's when you're like, all right, now we kind of get it. Like, humans can only go through so much trauma. Then you get your opposite list together. Then you get all the opposite energies. So what's the opposite of famine? Well, it would be abundance and generous sharing of it in a community of food, right? And you start to write down the opposite stuff. And then you do ritual, right? And you take your time on this. I spent months on it, and I got a really juicy list of stuff that I was like, this has to go, because it's distorting my reality. And because you are a creator and you're a water being and your DNA is mostly water, you can speak to your body. And through ritual, you get to utilize the power of your soul to help your body, which helps reality, which cleans up the conflict, it cleans up everything around you. It even will help your own community. It'll help your nation that you came from. It'll help your culture. It'll help all of your family and all your friends from the past, even into the future. And then you burn that list and you say, I am ready to dissolve all of it, but you got to go through each of those things. And you got to say, well, am I willing to recognize the frequency of famine in my body? I recognize you, famine. You've taught us a lot, and now I'm finished. I recognize you, all of these different traumas. There might be 100 of them. Be willing to go through each of them. I recognize you. I value you. You are a frequency. You informed us. Now we're finished. And then when you're finished with that, you burn your list, because burning is the act of dissolving in ritual. Then you take your other list, which is all the good stuff, and you go through that, and you be willing to feel those things, even if you're not familiar, your soul is. And so you say, well, okay, the abundance of food, I want to feel that. I welcome you. I welcome you in my reality. I welcome you in my DNA. I welcome you in our reality. You are welcome here now. And you go through all of those. So there might be 100 terrible traumas and 100 beautiful things that will replace them. And then what do you do with something you want to grow on this planet? You bury it. Give it to Gaia. If you want to grow something, bury it. And so then and take pictures of these things so you have them, because you're not going to see them in your lists afterwards, and you worked hard on them. But you bury them and you ask Gaia, please let these be part of the templates of the new world. This is what I offer as an act of service to consciousness and humanity. And then rest in being something totally different. Rest as being a beautiful being beyond the identity of your body, that has now been able to, with great awareness, make a big change in the film that gets projected into your reality, and therefore the reality of everyone else around you because of your awareness. So try that and see how that plays out for you as an act of power.
Thank you so much. This is so powerful and meaningful. Thank you.
My pleasure. And much healing for India and all surrounds, of course.
Thank you for the world.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, what's a way that you work in establishing ceremony for these rituals? How do you set the space, set the intention, and go about doing it? Do you use celestial events, astrological events to help amplify? Does it matter? Is it really where the heart resonates and when we're prepared to do it?
Yeah, it's sometimes. So like there's different hours of the day that can be very useful, like dawn. This is why in ancient Indian practices, the Brahmas do the, I'm blanking on what it's called, but they do a special ritual every morning, and it actually has a very profound, powerful effect on the earth around them. But the dawn or the dusk, the middle of the night, full moons, new moons, certain celestial alignments and events, birthdays, certain celebrations, and certain seasonal events. But honestly, ritual is ritual, and it's super great to use at any time. For myself, I like to create a circle that's very safe, because I do a lot of remote viewing, especially when I do ritual. Not everybody does, but I like to create a safe circle, and you just do it with your imagination. You have a natural field anyway, and I just clear it and I ask for whatever I'm doing in prayer, right? The basics, I like to use the elements. So I'll use fire, and I'll also use the earth. Water is for purification as well and dissolving, and the air is also an act of purity. But then you can add in the most important beings in your life. Perhaps if you're Christian, you bring in Christ, and you bring in Mother Mary and the saints if you're Catholic, or you bring in the icons or the cross, whatever it is that really inspires love in your heart. Or if you're East Indian, you're going to bring in the religion that you were brought up in. And so finding whatever it is that inspires you to basically, in prayerful intent, ask for all of these things to happen, but doing some of your actual homework beforehand too. You know, and being careful about karma. Like, you don't want to necessarily write somebody you don't like on a piece of paper and then burn them. That's not very nice. You don't want anybody doing that to you. But you could say banish the negative energies. You could banish any contracts or whatever it is that you want to be finished with, right? And those are really important to kind of think about, you know, well, what's karmically correct? Am I in etiquette right now? I'm not banishing people. I might banish experiences and traumas out of my field, though. That would work. And then, of course, making sure that you have an ending, right? Because rituals have a beginning and an ending. And rituals are lots of things. Brushing your teeth every day is ritual, right? In anthropology, ritual has a lot of different layers to it. In this case, it's spiritual, and you're doing it as an act of power to create your reality and change your mindset and change your DNA, which then emits all of those changes. So that's how I use ritual.
Yeah, I love that. And great suggestions on that. And again, the intention of it and the prayer, again, the ceremony of it is so much of it, so much of it. Adding our energy into it, but being in relationship and the intimacy of what's being evoked and why. So again, I love that you're sharing all of this. It's wonderful. You know, you're talking about the special offer earlier, and one of the thing I felt the call to go into the questions, but I wanted to talk a little bit more deeply also about the insecurities of the shifts that we're in. We feel like this, many of us feel a little bit of a wobble again in the unknown, as we're so used to preparing and anticipating and putting expectations out there, but there's a lot of unknown in these shifts where it's a whole mindset and beingness that I don't believe we've ever truly experienced with this much authority and sovereignty. Truly, how do we heal the insecurities? What's coming up that you see that is prevalent in the people that you're working with, and what are you seeing in their navigation in the healing? What's evolving as they're healed through some of those fears?
Thank you. I think it's important. First, you know, you're quite right, and we've alluded to this lack of surety, and humans have a bit of a control freak issue. And the only reason why people want to be in control is because they're not letting their soul drive the car. They're letting their ego and their trauma drive the car, and then you're going around in circles in the same town. So you never really get too far. And the soul's sort of hanging out the window being like, I don't know what we're doing anymore. But if you really look very clearly at what's going on galactically, our galaxy is actually in a very different place in space in a very literal way. And the place we're in space is, we're actually part of a huge structure of galaxies called Laniakea. And this incredible structure of galaxies is actually in the shape of a giant heart, and it has a secondary structure as well that's like a sister to it. It's very cool. Our galaxy is like a beautiful cell in the part of a very big body that we might call a celestial. And it's moving, and it's in a very different place in space now. And this place in space, it has these eddies and currents, literally, because space is actually plasma water, pretty much. And it's got eddies and currents that we've never experienced before. So if everyone's like weirded out about how different everything is and how we have no idea what we're doing or where we are, you're not crazy. Very true. And then secondly, what I'm finding is that when people finally realize, like, oh, it's not just me, like, it's not just my own ignorance or my own lack of ability to see this stuff, that it's for all of us, and it's actually the whole galaxy, not just Earth. Because if you go sit with the Syrians, for example, they're going to say, I don't know, just like everybody else. So that's what's happening as well. But when I sit with people and we're looking at these insecurities, one of them is about the pole shift, because really nobody knows exactly how that's going to look. But that incredible, powerful pole shift is very real. And it's scary at first, but here's the antidote. It's another one of those divine laws. It's your divine right to trust. Who knew that trust was one of your rights? It's a law that if you're in perfect trust, you're going to recognize that death is not real. Really, it's one of the biggest programs that blocks humankind is the fear of death. And it's the fear of death only exists because people keep being told that death is real instead of it being simply change. And so when you're willing, you have to be willing. It's not some kind of like magic wand or a button that you push. You have to be willing to drop your fear of death. And then what's on the other side? It's actually the absolute awe and perfection of change, the adoration even of how change works and is inevitable, and that inevitability is simple, that we all come from and always go back home to Source God, and that you don't ever have to worry about that not happening. It will always happen, because that's exactly how the void works. All things arise from the void. It is light without a source. Inside the universe, everything moves because light's bouncing around, thoughts are bouncing around, lights come from frequency, and all of these different frequencies are creating our conscious reality, like you are right now. But when you're willing to back up and say, the truth is that we all come from and arise from the same place, and we all go back home, and that's what's really happening, and I can trust that, then that divine trust, that perfect trust, is a huge game changer. Then it's fun. Then we're having a discovery process that's really exciting. It's a new experiment instead of like terrifying. And as we're watching the matrix fall apart, and we're like, what are we going to do about money? It's a whole amazing. It's going to be wonderful. Let all the fiat currency go home to source. And we're going to continue to create in this newness. And everybody's been wanting to have newness, right? We all want newness. That's special. That's fun and exciting. It actually brings back the childlike awe of the truth of reality. So the antidote to all of this is perfect trust. It's your right to have that and to be finished with death.
Beautiful. So good, Elizabeth. Okay, let's continue. Lynn has a great question. So Lynn's writing, how do I connect with the Lyrian library or any library? I was able to do it through a paradox state of mind, although I can't do it now. What do you think? Some of the stuff that comes in my dreams is free energy and gravity control. I want to make them, but it seems too science fiction and too scary.
So the Lyran library is kind of going to be defunct, because the Lyran library is what the Lyrans were doing before they were embodied in physical human form. What we were doing was dimension hopping. We were observers of the universe, great observers, right? But observing from a certain time and space. Now we're in a new time and space. So those technologies, I always tell people, make sure you're writing all of these down. Keep a dream journal. I too have remembered a lot of really cool tech as well that seems near impossible, and also, like you said, pretty scary, but super cool to think about from different past life memory and other stuff. But we don't need to worry so much about the Lyran library. The reason why we are protecting Gaia is because in the Lyran library is how to create DNA itself. The only way anybody accesses that library is if you have a Lyran lifetime, if you've had a past life as a Lyran, and that you currently have 100% Homo sapien DNA. And not everybody does. Hybrids are real, and they're important in our story as we continue into the future. We need all of them. We need all of us. We need you. Now, instead, don't worry about the Akashic record. Don't worry about the Lyran library. Instead, you have access to the most important source of all knowledge and wisdom that's far, far better than any of that source. You have access to Source God. You don't need anybody's library. You are the library. You are that. All you have to do is ask, Source God, show me what I need to know about blank, and then fill it in. That's what I do. I don't do anything different. If I'm doing a psychic reading for someone or doing a group healing, or Source God, show me what I need to know right now. And I might ask the same question for the same person the next day, and I'm going to get a different answer, because right now is right now. You don't need anybody's library. You are the library. So that's part of it too, is to own that now as humans. Own it. You have access.
It's time. It's time. I love where Alicia wrote in. Alicia, I take all of Elizabeth's classes and I love her. She has a huge giving heart and she has put my mind at ease when I was so full of fear. Thank you, Elizabeth, for all you do. And there's quite a few sentiments that are very similar to that from Alicia. So Alicia, thank you for that. Chris or April, we put the link for the special offer in the chat box one more time so that everybody has an opportunity to access it. And Elizabeth, I'd love to take another question. We have Tatiana that's here with us. And Tatiana, can you go ahead and unmute your microphone now?
Okay. Do you hear me now?
Hi,
We do,
Tatiana.
yes.
We do.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, hi. Oh my God. I'm so happy to see you. When I see you, it's like light coming.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet.
Sweet.
Oh, I don't even know how to start. I have very difficult life. I'm half Ukrainian, half Russian, and this situation, it's very difficult. But I'm trying to find my place, and I am in frustration. Where is my place? Where should I do? I want to take all your classes, but unfortunately I cannot set financially right now. I want to go everywhere with you. Trust me. What can you tell me? What should I do? How can I find my place?
Yeah, I
How
got you
can I
covered.
go?
So first, you have a lot of and many people on the call today have a lot of elemental background. The elementals were invited to be human, right? And so that's why nature and Gaia, you're here for them. You're here for Gaia and nature. You picked a very interesting combination of lineages this time because it was well known that this war that's been going on would happen because there's many powerful stargates in Ukraine and
yes.
among many things, right? So here's what you can do as an elemental being. First, really own this and get closer to the earth every day. Go hug a tree and get your bare feet on the ground.
I did it today. I went to park after hard work and hug a tree.
Yes, exactly. But here's the skill that is really important. It's the
Thank you
superpower,
so much.
right?
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Okay.
And
I'm
it's
listening.
that you're a mystical dreamer. And because you're in a feminine body, and this is for all the women, especially the feminine. It doesn't mean men can't do this, of course. We need the men to dream too. But women are very good at multitasking, right? We can cook dinner and dream at the same time. And men are very focused, which is really important. But the feminine right now, what you can do to help all these things, to help what's going on in Ukraine in Russia and all of it, is to dream up a better world. You must spend your time instead of worrying, which is just the trauma getting replayed in your mind. Do not underestimate the power of your subconscious. It's pure power. And when you envision with your imagination something terrible or something that you're worried about or a trauma, then it tells the subconscious that you want that to play out because the subconscious is very literal. It doesn't take jokes. And it doesn't realize that we don't want bad things to happen. It says, oh, that's what she's thinking about. That must be what she wants to happen. So if you get control of your mind, bow to your mind and say, thank you very much, but I really need you to focus on imagining the war ending, imagining the people healing, imagining them all coming together and eating a meal together, imagining all of this happening all over the world. And when Source God speaks to you by showing you in what seems like an external example, you hear news perhaps like, oh, well, we heard that they want to, play out a World War III war game, and they keep telling us that Gaia is a war zone, which is crazy. So how do we change it? You need to understand you are the stage. If you change the scenery and say, I don't believe you, it's not a war zone, it's paradise, and you're envisioning it, then they look stupid. They look like a bunch of kids playing war in the yard. And that's not going to work. Change the frequency by taking control of your imagination and dreaming. Do daydreaming. Daydreaming is mystical dreaming. And when you do mystical dreaming, you're envisioning something better, and you can ask God, ask Gaia, and ask Source God, help me to see what's possible. Gaia, what do you want it to look like today? And let her just play it out through you. Let her play it out through you. You see, Gaia can swap up that film in your head, and she can put a beautiful film that's playing out, and then it gets projected by your consciousness into reality. And have no doubt that this has a dramatic effect on reality. I teach about these things, as you know, and I have so many examples of how this plays out very physically and very quickly. But you must be willing to get control of your mind. So right now, that's all you need to focus on, Tatiana. Dream
Thank
up a better place for all of us. You're
for all
so
of us.
powerful
It's
at it.
so much tragedy. It's just cannot.
Exactly. Don't
Oh.
focus on that, though.
You
Focus
think
on what's possible.
Elizabeth, do you think I'm powerful? I
Of
don't think
course.
myself powerful. No.
You're powerful like the crystals that live for billions of years, projecting their perfect light into the world. That's the kind of power you have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Blessings, Tatiana. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Oh, John, I love you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, Elizabeth. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, and what Tatiana brought up and what you were speaking up, Elizabeth, it's really the currency of the future. And we're going to find it's so much more valuable than we give it credit for. It's art, creativity, the poetry, the dancing, how we're interpreting that as we're co-creating with Earth and calling in the energies from galactic realms. That translation and the value of that, it's going to bring cultures together. It's going to expand consciousness. We don't give it the value now because we're very transactionally driven, or we give it some credence, but we survive on the transaction rather than on the receiving and on the giving. And you're going to find that that's going to change very quickly for us, very quickly. So many questions are coming in, Elizabeth. It's just everybody, nobody wants to stop with you. The last day to sign up for the special offer, there is not a last day. The live class is listed on the special offer page. If you sign up after that, you may not attend the live class, but you will get recordings of it. We'll be running this package on Beyond the Ordinary through replays, which will probably run about second week of October, most likely, maybe first week of October. Is there anything else you want to share about that, Elizabeth?
No, except that I can't wait to start our history class.
Amazing. Again, so much beauty that's coming through. And it's just, just take a deep breath and just feel into how beautiful this world is. Feel into how we're being so beautifully guided, and feel into how you're beautifully guiding yourself into this, which is what's really happening. And we have these galactic and earthly and elemental spirits that are cheering us on and supporting us. But make no mistake about it, like Elizabeth said, you are the creator of your reality. You just are. And it's time to claim your inheritance of your divine light. And how fortunate are we that we have way showers, lamp holders, like Elizabeth, to remind us of that, and to help us attune, and to help us relieve the part of us that maybe doesn't know, and can start creating story around past stories, so that we can create new ones and create new realities. So amazing what you're bringing through, Elizabeth. As always, thank you.
My pleasure, John.
For what you do. Thank you for how you're bringing it in. Thank you for your generosity. And all of y'all, thank you for what you all do. Thank you for being willing to remember how powerful you and your love are, your creativity, your presence, the currency of that. It's invaluable. Thank you for gifting it here. And with that, I bow down to each and every one of you, and namaste. I look forward to seeing y'all on the next call. Bye, everybody.